Aastha, just give me a moment.
Hey Shashank, we're live.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome to 100x YouTube channel. And today we've got Aastha Grover from Startup India, and we'll be spending the next 45 minutes to 50 minutes getting a perspective from her. Before I dive in and introduce her, a quick overview about what 100x has been doing over the last 3 years. We are an early stage fund, have invested in 80 plus startups, and work very closely with Startup India, who has helped us reach to multiple companies across India, where we've been able to provide seed capital. And Aastha herself comes, with a lot of experience. She is currently the head of Startup India under the DPIT, Ministry of Commerce. She's been the founding member of the team and has seen the ecosystem grow to become the third largest. And I could be corrected. Aastha might have the right numbers right now, whether we become the first or not. And the Startup India Hub was announced by the Honorable Prime Minister on 16th of January 2016, and it's been a fantastic journey since then. It is hosted under Invest India. Her team serves as the single point of contact for the entire startup ecosystem across India and enables exchange of knowledge and provides access to market and funding. Aastha serves currently on multiple startup committees like Samrid, Steering Committee of FCDO, Nidhi TBI, which is under DST, Telecom Center of Excellence, so on and so forth. And this entire background has given her and the entire startup India a perspective of how the whole ecosystem has been developing, with the one point of contact being Startup India and enabling that development. And we really are grateful for her to kind of take out time today, and looking forward to the session. So welcome, Aastha. And today we look forward for your insights, what Startup India has been working towards, what are the key initiatives which startups can benefit from, and how do they go about identifying or seeking those opportunities out. So thank you again for taking out the time, and over to you, Aastha.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shashank, for the wonderful introduction. And good morning and hello to everyone who has joined us live for this session. I'm just gonna share my screen right now. What I want to cover in the next 15 to 20 minutes is broadly take you through the genesis of Startup India, run you through how we qualify what is a startup in India and what are the associated benefits with it, and take you through the various and host of incentives and opportunities that come through for startups in India through various state and central government initiatives. Shashank, you have to give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen right now. Okay, wonderful.
I
So,
can.
without much further ado, thank you, Shashank. I will take a couple of minutes to talk about all what we already know, right? That Startup India was started in 16th January 2016 by the Honorable Prime Minister. But I wanted to add that, it was before 2000, right? The startups had already stemming up in the Indian ecosystem. But in 2016, through a dedicated action plan and a support system, the government wanted to support all of you, all the entrepreneurs. And the reason behind that was very simple. We saw the entrepreneurs becoming the next biggest job creators than job seekers. We saw all of you adding so much of wealth, and it's so much of at a faster rapid pace that that it was just phenomenal to see this journey. And we wanted to bring everyone together on one platform so that the network, the opportunities, and the plethora of incentives that all of us are working on could all be consolidated. Now, while you have seen, once the action plan was launched, it's been 6 years since that journey. I've been a founding member of the team since 2016, and today it is an immense pleasure and pride for us to see that we are, the third largest ecosystem when it comes to the number of unicorns, the second largest ecosystem when it comes to the number of startups, and we're also the fastest growing ecosystem by adding the largest number of startups every day. Every day, my team is adding about 80 startups and recognizing them to be a part of this ecosystem. Um, what While the numbers is something you can see on the screen, but what I want to highlight is that, as you can see, from just 120 districts to today more than 600 districts, the startups are coming from the length and breadth of the country. When we started, there were just 4 states which had a dedicated policy to support the startups, but today there are about 31 states and union territories that have an active policy to handhold the startups in their nations. Um, some key interventions across the years that has led to this kind of revolution was the single largest source for providing all this information, the Startup India website, which has more than 5.8 lakh users. The funding schemes, I will talk more about them in the subsequent slides. The Startup India Yatra that went on ground across districts and provided ideation workshops, boot camps, incubation, and cash grants to a lot of entrepreneurs who just had an idea that time. We enabled market access through the government, international, and corporate, and I will touch upon all these elements as well. And our endeavor is to enable startups to, be able to do their business and make enable ease of doing business for them. We believe that we want to reduce the compliance burden, and with that belief, about 52 regulatory reforms at the center level have also been brought about for the startups specifically. Now, when we talk about what is a startup, right? How we define it, it's a huge gamut of industries, enterprises, MSMEs. But through very simple definition and a lot of research and hard work, where we came across the simple definition, one, you have to be an incorporated entity. The form of incorporation that is eligible is either a private limited company, a LLP, a registered partnership, or even a one-person company. You have to be not more than 10 years old from the date of incorporation at the time of your application. So you may choose to apply in the third year, fourth year, seventh year, but the date of 10 years is calculated from the date of your incorporation. The revenue must not exceed 100 crores in any fiscal year. And finally, the fourth parameter, which qualifies as a startup and distinguishes them from any other entity, is the element of innovation, scalability, job, and wealth. And this is not an and parameter. So even if you fulfill one of these criteria and justify how you are adding to the job creation or adding to the wealth, you are eligible to apply for the Startup India recognition. The recognition happens completely digitally. Earlier, there was a letter of recommendation that you were supposed to submit through third parties and private entities. However, again, with the endeavor to make it more simple, that process has also been done away with, and it is a completely digital process. You don't need any external help to fill this application for you. If you know your business well, you can do this yourself within 48 hours to 72 hours. If your application is found complete, the recognition numbers comes to you. Now, what happens after that recognition that you get, right? As a government, our endeavor is to help startups across their life cycle. So even if someone comes to us saying, "I just have an idea, what do I do?" We have a dedicated learning and development module that helps him convert that idea into a business plan. When people, there are people who don't even have an idea, we have an idea bank for them, talking about the national problems and some problems that are still unresolved, and throwing up to them challenges which they may take up to come up with a venture of their own. um, as you grow in this journey, we help you connect with the market. So, be it the customers or be it the international frame, we enable that market access for you through various partners that we work with. Time and again, we have demo days and pitching sessions, which are sector specific through our funding partners. And this, again, I'm going to touch more about in the subsequent slide. At the growth stage, we recognize startups through the National Startup Awards. We are in the third edition at present, and we also have the Fund of Funds. Specifically, because I was asked to cover a lot about the financial assistance provided by the government, I wanted to take, a holistic view here and not just talk about the Startup India initiative. But the first thing is, if you are a startup, you should look at which is the concerned line ministry for you, right? And by a line ministry, it means that it is a ministry that is looking at a particular sector or a theme within the government. And within that, what we're trying to do is that with a lot of these departments, we're encouraging them to come up for startup specific incentives, policies, or a way for them to engage with startups. To quote some examples, the Agriculture Ministry has a program called the RKVY, which is the Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana scheme, and under that they provide incubation as well as funding support to startups in the agri and elite sectors. A lot of you may already have worked with the Department of Science and Technology, which has an umbrella scheme called Nidhi, and under that ambit, they provide incubation support, they provide seed support, they provide entrepreneurship and resident support. Now, the idea is you may feel that, I don't need an incubation. But from a government lens, while you may not need an incubation, and if that's your thinking, you could opt for a virtual incubation as well. But give yourself the opportunity to avail those seed grant money or the convertible debt options or the CPP models that come through the government funding. Because I think once you are in that network of getting, the government funded money, it adds a lot of relevance to your startup as well, and the follow up funding or investment or customer access becomes a lot more easier. So try and be part of this network through some scheme or the other. Defense, we all know, we have an annual challenge that is called IDEX, and the Technology Development Fund has also been set up under the Defense Ministry through BIRAC, which is the PSU of the Department of Biotechnology. The startups are again being supported, and biotechnology is a very broad sector again. So life sciences, elite sectors around that also are supported by the biotechnology sector, BIRAC. And they again provide seed funding to late stage funding to the BIRAC ACE Fund. And they've also recently come up with a BIRAC Angel Network looking at supporting innovations in this field. We have the Mighty Startup Hub, which is the Ministry of Electronics and IT, looking at as well as acceleration support right now through the Samrit scheme to startups in the growth phase. Through NRDC, you can get seed funding for your POC level developments. And then there are some certain initiatives under the rural development as well. For any of these information on these line ministries, I just want to add that one, this is only a subset of the gamut of schemes that are available. You should definitely check out more for your particular sector under that ministry as well, and get details through their websites. The second mode of funding that is provided by the government is through the state, right? Now, as I mentioned earlier, today there are 31 states and union territories that have a dedicated startup policy. Now, under that startup policy, you get marketing assistance, you get assistance to represent that state at international level, you get subsidies on loans, you get, if you're a women entrepreneur, there are specific incentives for you. But more importantly, 15 states today have their own fund, and that fund either be in the seed stage or as a fund of funds, but that fund is looking to invest in good startups from that state. So Tamil Nadu recently had a startup seed grant fund, and the awardees were awarded in the event that they held earlier this week. Rajasthan has its own Rajasthan Venture Capital Fund. Orissa has a growth fund. JNK has a seed capital fund. Meghalaya has a fund supported by the World Bank Group through the Lead Landscape Management Group. Gujarat has, apart from the Student Innovation Fund, they also have other funds to support the ecosystem. Kerala provides an innovation grant, and of course, the Kitwin Fund at Karnataka has been doing great with supporting startups across the life cycle. Again, I'm repeating, these are just 8 state funds that you see on the slide. Today, more than 15 states and union territories have a dedicated fund. Now, for you to quickly check, what are the incentives under your state, what you can do is you can go to the Startup India website. Under the scheme section, you can go to the policies by state, and in a very crisp, you don't need to read that 100-pager document. In a very crisp way, you can see the fiscal, non-fiscal incentives offered by that state and who is the nodal point of contact for that state. So it gives you all the information in a quick format in one go. Now, the third pillar of support by the government. So we spoke about the different sector-specific funds. We spoke about the different state-specific fund. The third pillar I wanted to talk about is the funding support, which is specifically offered by Startup India. Now, okay, we're going to start with the SIDBI fund of funds. The SIDBI fund of funds is a 10,000 crore fund of funds that invests through venture capital funds that are registered with SEBI. Now, how that model works is that, first of all, understand that as a government, it is my job to provide and mobilize capital for this ecosystem. I'm not into the job of managing fund because you have specialized people to do that work, right? The venture capitals, the incubators, a specific due diligence team. So when the government has opened up this 10,000 crore fund of fund, the mandate is very simple. Through SIDBI, a SIDBI will invest only about maximum of about 20 to 25% in the total corpus of the venture capital fund. So, for example, if I, as a venture capital fund, am raising a 100 crore fund and SIDBI invests 20 crore in my fund, the remaining 80 crore I have to raise from my other partners, limited partners, and 2x of my contribution, which is 40 crores of this 20 crores, has to go into DPIT eligible startups. So through this mechanism, what I'm doing is that I'm increasing the mobilized invested capital that is available to be invested in this ecosystem. As I can see on the slide, there has been a 7x catalyzing effect that has been available just because of the SIDBI backing of all these funds. More than 500 startups have been supported through this fund so far, and there are about 80 plus venture capital funds. The details of these venture capital funds are also available on the SIDBI website. How you should approach these VCs is that you should look at their investment mandate and thesis and select the ones that would apply for your startup and approach them, and mention that you're DPIT eligible as well. What we're also doing is that we're coming up with a funding platform that will directly enable you to connect with these venture capitals through a gamified digital model. So, one, it will check your investment readiness level, and second, it will then enable connections directly through a transparent online mode on this platform. The second funding support available is the seed fund scheme. Now, if you're a startup in the early stage of your journey, and by early I mean as old as 2 years old, so the funding scheme is actually for startups who are into the idea to POC stage, looking at an investment. So the scheme provides grants up to 20 lakh or a convertible debt or a debt link instrument up to 50 lakh. How to access this scheme is through incubators. This scheme again is completely paperless and a digital scheme run on the Startup India portal. So there are about 100 plus incubators that have been selected so far, and it's an ongoing process. You can look at the portfolio of those incubators and the sectors that they're interested to invest in. Then select 3 incubators who would you like to support and submit your application. Within 45 days, you'll have a yes or a no if that incubator is taking that conversation forward and investing in you, and then or not. Let's say all 3 of them are not, are overwhelmed and do not have the bandwidth to support or are not taking this forward. Then after a cool down period, you can apply to the next set of incubators as well. So, if you're looking at seed and early stage capital, this will be the scheme for you. The third way how we engage is by providing cash grants through various challenges that we work with corporates, with international players, and the likes. The idea here also is to provide the market access that we have through linkages with these partners. Um, I've already spoken about the fund of funds, right? The details of the venture capital funds that are supported through this initiative are available on the SIDBI VCF website. And their investment mandate is something you'll have to look before approaching them. The seed fund scheme, how it works is through the incubators, like I mentioned. And as a startup, you need to apply to the incubator. The list of these incubators selected are available on the Startup India Seed Fund website that is also linked on the website. Now, this is the third element, and I wanted to take you through an example. So, let's say you're a startup in the space of animal husbandry. So, the departments also today are looking very actively looking to work with startups in areas that are of concern to them. So, for example, particularly with the animal husbandry ministry, we've been looking at the issues of milk adulteration, we've been looking at the issues of cold storage and the likes. So what we're trying to do is that over the last two editions, over the last 2 years, we have hosted dedicated programs that have provided fiscal benefits worth over 1 crore. Now, I would say that, fiscal benefit is only one element of the benefit that you get. But you also get a very critical opportunity to pitch to the ministry and link it to them that this is what is available with us as a solution, and then take it forward either with the ministry or the PSU that is linked through that ministry to procure this solution. So I believe the opportunity, especially if you're a startup where the government is the end user, these programs and challenges are very, very critical for you to be a part of and showcase what you're doing to the department. The fourth pillar of how we've been helping in the fundraising facilitation with investors is through a dedicated vertical that we have for the National Startup Awardees. Now, as you know, that we've just recently hit the milestone of 75,000 startups. These startups are across their life cycle journey, right? Some are in ideation state, some are in scale up, so some are in early traction, and the others are in validation phase. Now, within this subsector of 75,000 startups, we have a pool of national startup awardees that have gone through a deeper due diligence by an external agency and are creating significant social impact and contribution to the economy. A bunch of 400 plus startups in the last two editions have been provided support with direct pitching opportunities through the SIDBI fund of funds, the 90 venture capital funds. And they got the opportunity to pitch to these investors, and then whenever the investor was interested, all those connection requests, which turned out to be more than 70 plus for these in one edition, for these startups were made. We work a lot with the global funds as well, and wherever information by them is sought in terms of connection with the startups, we enable those facilitation. We've taken up a lot of master classes as well. By master classes, what we've learned and realized is that a lot of times the idea of funding seems very how do I say, rosy to a startup, but on the other hand, you also have examples of Zerodha and Zoho, which are completely bootstrapped, right? So the idea behind these master classes is to have those candid conversations on whether you need funds at this stage or not, whether you're ready for the next round of funding or not, and what are the kind of investors, if at all you're ready for investment, you should target. And what is it that it takes to pitch, what are the elements of the negotiation and term sheets. All this information is what we try and cover through these master classes with the experts. We have done a lot of AMAs with 100x VC as well. We have done sessions with Rajan from Sequoia. We have done with a lot of investors who talk about the on-ground realities about this initiative. Yeah, and some amazing feedback has been received, as you can see on the slide, by people. Tinkerbell was recently on the last edition of Shark Tank as well. They have been a part of the National Startup Awardee Network, are doing excellent, and among others. Now, while I understand that funding has been a critical element, but I also today wanted to talk a lot about providing access to market, because more than the investment, what you also need is the customers, is a validation to the products that you have in hand, and be able to access the network provided by other partners. So there are three ways to look at it. First is the government market access. If you're looking to supply to the government, there are two ways to go about it. One, you should be part of the government e-marketplace, which has all the tenders supported by central government departments and so startup has a separate runway on GEM, and over $1 billion of sales, particularly for startups, has also been done through the GEM portal. As a startup, you get exemptions on prior experience, prior turnover, and EMD requirements when you apply through that bid. And second, the runway gives you a dedicated platform to highlight those innovations to the players as the suppliers who are there to look at those innovations. If you do not find a particular product or a category on GEM, we will be happy to assist you with getting onboarded on GEM and create that new category as a part of this marketplace. Um, okay. The second part of market access is when we work with corporates. The idea is again threefold. One, either the corporate is looking at a particular problem solving approach. They have a very specific problem that they want a solution to. Second, they're looking to integrate or just be aware of the latest innovations that exist in a particular sector that is of interest to them. Third, they want to open their network of suppliers and value chain to the startups that could provide, and it could be a win win situation for both of them. So, with the past 6 years, we've worked with 150 plus corporates, supported 800 startups, and given cash grants worth 33 crore. And these are pure play cash grants. The pilot orders add a different quantums to all this. So, right from the Qualcomm, Cipla, Uber, HDFC, a lot of these corporates have worked with us and are in multiple phases of their journey to support this ecosystem. As a user, as a startup, you should understand that for me, if you come to me and say that, hey, I want to connect with this corporate to introduce a particular startup on an individual basis, it gets difficult for us because one, we are dealing with a quantum of 75 plus thousand startup, and second, it will be very overwhelming for the corporate as well if we start making these individual connections. So it is very important we do it in a program and an institutional way, and that's why whenever you see, if we have a very active social media and we talk about these challenges through regular emails and all, be a part of the mailing list, be a part of this network to know about these opportunities. The third pillar is the global market access, right? So we spoke about government as a customer, corporates as a customer, and now international market as a customer. The idea is to open up the international bridges that we have with the startups. So far, okay, one second. Yeah. So far, we have 15 plus international bridges. The number on the slide will get updated. We have more than 15 plus international bridges with the countries that you see on your screen. Now, how a bridge works is that it is a soft landing platform that you have on the Startup India website and a partner from the other side. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're working to expand in the Dubai market or the Japan market, right? So with Japan, we have JetPro as a partner who helps you understand that market better and who helps you navigate that market. With Dubai, we have the support of our consulate general, and we also have support from the different chambers that are there to access and navigate that market and help you with legal requirements, visa requirements, understanding that market, and connecting them with the right stakeholders. Likewise, at this site, we have. Startup India acts as the single point of contact for the international startups that are approaching this bridge and are looking to expand in India. We've worked with a lot of corporates as well who have leveraged this bridge platform to host programs and challenges and look at solutions. So with Israel, we were looking at the leading solutions in the agri, water, and health space. With Japan, SoftBank came forward to support the bleeding AI and machine learning startups. And so forth. And with Korea, we worked with SBI, among many others that you see. Apart from that, what you should also know is that as Startup India, we highlight the best of the innovations across various platforms. So we take on a partly sponsored and paid trip to the startups, we take them to various global platforms. So be it the Dubai Expo, where more than 100 startups were showcased, and they were also sponsored by Startup India to be a part of the expo to pitch to the investors there. And we also had an innovation bus where they were highlighted right outside the expo, where a lot of media and corporates and investors were engaging with them. You see some testimonials from the startups on the screen, getting angel investment, getting licensing agreement with the distribution companies, getting express of interest for investments and expansion to that market. Right now, we took five startups in the media and art space to the Cannes Film Festival. We've been representing unicorns at the World Economic Forum. This was the first time that the unicorn chapter was open. We recently concluded the selection of startups for Slush that happens annually in Finland, Helsinki. uh, and more such opportunities and international platforms also keep coming. We were also representing India at the Viva Tech Festival in Paris. So I think if these international countries are your focus, you should look at the international programs that are hosted by Startup India and be a part of this delegation where you represent India as how it looks in the innovation ecosystem and represent the country and get connections and pitching and meeting opportunities with the stakeholders out there. With that, Shashank, I'm just going to leave these last slide with coordinates on how to reach out to us. But yes, open to questions and answers right now.
Well, thank you so much, Asta. That was a very, very detailed presentation. I got to learn a lot in terms of the multiple initiatives and multiple activities which Startup India has been conducting. So let's open it up for specific Q&A. And I think let me begin by just acknowledging where we are in 2022. Right, it has taken us roughly 6 to 8 years for the next second evolution of startup culture to build up, where that's when 2016 Startup India was initiated. And while we've got these funds, micro VC, seed stage funds, a bunch of new startups emerging, registering themselves as startups over the last 6 to 8 years, multiple funding rounds, and then on top of that, Startup India doing a humongous initiative of going horizontal and then vertical across multiple initiatives. I think what we've sensed during our interactions with startups is that they seem to be a little confused in terms of what to go after, what to approach, because these are first time entrepreneurs. The culture is just shaping up. And while primarily investors are trying to identify a company in terms of the stages and when they should back or not, I think Startup India comes in at a very, very crucial point to address these questions and nurture the early stage ecosystem. And I think based on that, I think we've gotten a set of questions from the founders. And I think generic questions which you've also covered mostly, but I think to begin with, a lot of founders have asked us that what is the most important scheme which has been the most beneficial for startups since the inception of Startup India. Specifically, there are multiple schemes, but what is the most important scheme which has been the most beneficial for startups?
I think while it is difficult to choose one, because there are multiple incentives are aimed at multiple people, but it depends on what journey you have been. I don't know how you define success, but for us, the basic endeavor is if it is helping startups to move to the next edge, that is what is helpful. So I may not be able to pick one over the other, but for the R&D startups, the patent scheme, right, providing patent and fast track patent examination has been extremely encouraged. And it's not just about getting 80% rebate on your patent application form, but it is the pool of facilitators that are paid by the government to help you with your patent scheme. And because it was widely used, it was renewed for the second term as well. Then comes the tax exemption. While I know that tax exemption is a little difficult to avail, and we are trying to work on that bit as well. And hopefully, very soon, we will come up with simpler and streamlined version of that as well. But for the 400 plus startups that have got tax exemption, right, it is a big boon, right? You don't have to pay income tax for 3 consecutive years, and you can reap back that profit back into your business. And the tax exemption scheme also keeps getting extended in every budget announcement every year. So yeah. I would say
No,
these.
and thanks for bringing that up. I had one of the questions which came up, and I'm glad you touched upon it. Is how to apply for tax exemption under Startup India, because many a times the application gets stuck. And I'm so glad you already covered that. The government is trying to bring in so many startups together and kind of figure out how we can manage that. And we ourselves have been telling our portfolio companies that this is a great initiative. Might take a little time in terms of going step by step, but I personally believe that I think that one piece is a huge differentiator for startups. And I think one more question which really comes up, and what is your recommendation, because there's so many of these initiatives happening, and each are applicable and relevant for either a seed stage startup or a series A and series B. But what would your recommendations be in terms of what are the three things startups should do while using the Startup India portal? Everybody hears about it, but depending on early stage founders, why are they coming to Startup India? What are the top three things they should look at? How should they associate when they start their journey?
I think beautiful question, I would want to say, because the Startup India portal is currently very overwhelming in terms of the information. I'm taking your second question first, Shashank. And I'm going to bifurcate it as per the stage, like you mentioned. So if you are an early stage startup, the three things you should look from the Startup India portal is one, the seed fund scheme. It's just a yellow box on the top on the homepage that will take you to the seed page, and you can see the incubators and you can directly apply to them. The second, at an ideation stage, what you need is support of either mentors or incubators. So currently on the portal, we have more than 700 plus incubators. You can shortlist those incubators and look at the ones that are probably near you or supporting your sector, and then send them a connection request to take this conversation forward. Now, you may not want to get incubated, but you would probably want to see how that incubator is providing funding support to the startup. So you should be aware of those opportunities. And the third is the mentor pool. Now, on mentorship, what we're doing is, while there are already about somewhat 1,000 mentors on the Startup India portal, what we're also trying to do is gamify the entire mentor matchmaking with the startup matchmaking. So we again, you'll on the website, on the homepage, you will see Mark, which is a new initiative. We're working. So Manoj Kohli from SoftBank, as part of the National Startup Advisory Council, has been helping us build this platform. Piyush Goyal sir recently announced the call for mentor onboarding on that platform. But the basic idea is that 50% of our startups today, Shashank, are from tier 2, tier 3 cities, right? Which means if I'm not from an IIM or an IIT, I don't have that network around me. I can't pick up the phone and ask a basic question: what is a term sheet? How much did you pay your CA? Or what is it that I need to do, right? And for that, to enable to bring that network to these startups who are making products for the Bharat, we are opening this gamut of mentors that will do a gamified matchmaking with the mentors and the mentee, and it will again be digital, and we're getting the best of the mentors. So be it academicians, be it unicorns, be it investors, be it corporate CXOs. So we are hosting it up to all these investors who are coming on a pro bono basis to help you. We're looking at the official launch somewhere done the probably towards the end of this month or early next month, but would urge all the startups to take advantage of these mentorship portal as well. On the next part, if you're a growth stage startup, what to look at the Startup India portal is the fund of funds, where you can get in touch with the VC supported under SIDBI. You should look at the international programs, because that is where we are looking at startups who are ready to showcase, one, what the products are ready for the markets outside, and second, they are they are capable enough to represent India at a global platform. So the international bridges page and the international programs and challenges is what you should look at the Startup India portal. Do you want me to take the first question now on the tax exemption bit?
Yeah, I think you've covered, but yes, if you can help the audience and the portfolio companies understand that what is the kind of work and what are the kind of set of improvements or the challenges which are being faced by founders is being genuinely addressed, as we
Right.
investors know. But from a founder's perspective, yeah, how are you addressing those challenges and what is the roadmap for the next,
Right.
let's say 6 months?
So I'm gonna talk about two tax exemptions. One is the Section 56 tax exemption, which will provide you a capital gain exemption, and is beneficial for the investors as well that invest. This is a very simplified process, right? So this we worked out with CBDT thanks to the Department of Revenue. All you have to do is fill a form that is available on the website and submit it. CBDT takes just quickly, I think within 2-3 days, they will give you the certificate that yes, you're exempted from this. Um, the second, where and about 5 to 6 thousand startups have already got the Section 56 exemption. So I do not see a challenge as far as Section 56, which is also known as the angel tax exemption, is concerned. The second bit, which is the Section 80 IIC, which is the income tax exemption provided to startups for a period of 3 years out of any 10 years in your life, is where an interministerial board is a layer that approves this application. So an independent entity reviews the application. Now, think from the government point of view. One, they have to ensure that the benefit does not get misused by any entity who may reconstruct itself to avail the income tax exemption. So with that rationale itself, I think that the due diligence is a little stricter in terms of understanding the board of directors that are as a part of this, in terms of understanding whether this company was flipped from any other company, and things like that. So, what you do is you submit your application when you are ready. I would encourage, whenever you are ready, do it to the interministerial board. Once the application is found, they will complete. A set of, they will evaluate it, they will see the merit in it, and a lot of times queries are raised in terms of justifying these things, right? And those questions are passed, given to the startups. Now what we've seen, Shashank, is most of the time the startups are not able to justify, also they don't even come back to us, right? So that is the first phase where we lose the bunch of startups who are not applying. But having said that, we are working to probably make it on an automated basis right now, and see, I'll probably share more details once it is finalized. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that insight. And during your presentation, Aastha, you did talk about industry connects, GTM, international or rather corporates and government, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but I had a question for my understanding, and a lot of startups have asked, are startups able to reach out to Startup India to specifically ask for company connects, or is there a program which is being run, let's say, by an XYZ large corporate on IoT companies, and hence IoT companies can apply? This is a common question which emerges, that how can I reach to 10 companies? Is that what Startup India is proposing, or is it specific mandates by certain group of companies where specific companies from sectors can apply?
It's actually the latter, right? As a government entity, what I can, it is difficult for me to cater to the different individual demands of every startup, right? And on the other side, I may be connected with some, I may not be connected with the others, but to keep sending them one by one or selecting one over the other, it gets difficult for us to justify. Hence it is on a program basis, where when the corporate expresses interest in their area or in the sector or with a specific problem, is that we open up to the startups, and they see all the applications that they have applied. So this also helps that, one, the startups are choosing to connect with the players they want to connect with. Second, it there is no bias at my end. I'm not helping one individual startup over the other. And third, it is on mutual understanding between the corporates and the startups on how they want to take it forward.
No, great. And adding just to that for the audience, 100x has been working very closely with Startup India, and uh, they have a very, very large set of companies, and it's very impressive to see the kind of programs which are listed. And every time a startup which is subscribed or within the Startup India portal gets to see regular updates of these programs. So it's a great opportunity for all the startups to understand multiple initiatives by large corporates which are taking place, which you can directly apply by just going on to their website. So great, thanks, Asta, for answering that. The next question, which we get to hear a lot, Startup India is also engaged with a lot of investors. So, uh, how is Startup India helping startups in connecting with investors? And is there a set of angel investors, a list of angel investors, which the startups can reach out to through Startup India?
So no, we don't have a list ready or handy because the network is too much, and most of them have their sourcing networks. But what we have done is that some of these investors, you may find them on Startup India as well, and through that basis the connect button, you can reach out to those investors in the individual capacity or as a network. The second is that. Again, through the program approach that we do, where we provide pitching opportunities, is where we open that access of the startup to either an angel investor or the VC. So the pitching network opportunities come again time to time, either as a part of the government programs that we do. So with animal husbandry, it ended with a demo day and pitching day. With fisheries, we're doing it. We did it for all the national startup awardees, and it happens both for domestic investors as well as international investors. So, for example, with the support of our Embassy of India in Tokyo, they brought in all the Japanese investors and corporates on one plate, and they wanted, and they were very interested in IR 4.0, in energy, and they wanted those startups to pitch to the Japanese side, right? And the translation also happens simultaneously on the virtual platform. So we enable those connections. So to be able to connect with this network, you have to be part of either a program like the National Startup Awardees or be a part of any of the other programs. But the good thing, I think the question is from Dharamraj, a good thing that is happening, Dharamraj, is that we're also coming up with the funding platform, right? Through the help of SIDBI, that will enable these online connections directly. So, a couple of months down the line, the work has already started on the funding platform. You will see all the investors on board on one side and a transparent way to reach out to them, basis the stage at which you are in and basis the investment thesis of the investors.
Astha, to the previous question, which was around GTM and industry connects, there's one question which was addressed, and I think while I understand it, but would be good to get your perspective for the founders. Have you received a question saying, B2B founders see a lot of delay in payments. Is there any support for delayed payments from large corporate clients slash government clients? What's your take on that?
For the government clients, if you are a startup who's also registered as an MSME, right, all the payments have to get cleared within a specified time of, I think, uh, I'll not quote the time, but I think it's a dedicated time. So if that does not happen, you should understand that there is a way to raise that complaint, right? And you can use the public grievance platform. And as a government, I'm mandated to respond to that public grievance as well and work towards resolving it. So if it is a payment stuck at the government level, that's how you should approach it. And second, for the large corporates is probably you should also look at the TREDS platform, which is the trade receivables discounting system, where today even DPIT recognized startups can use, can get their bills discounted and probably have that cash flow in hand. So these two, I would say for now. But in all honesty, payments from large corporates is not something we have directly deal with because goes beyond. Uh, and hasn't come to our mandate as well. But if it's something that needs to be looked at, we will be happy to discuss this further. Yeah.
We dived into Startup India, but there are a lot of people who wanted to understand the clear demarcation difference in these three bodies: Startup India, DIPP, and Invest India. What
Yeah.
roles are these playing in the entire ecosystem?
Okay, good question again, Shashank. One, the nodal ministry is the Ministry of Commerce that has DPIT, that's the new name, Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. So that's the department that runs the show, that owns Startup India, and that is responsible for everything related to Startup India. Startup India is an initiative under DPIT. So, like every initiative is mapped to a ministry. The ministry is looking at one initiative, Startup India, among many other initiatives under them. For example, DPIT, being the nodal for industry and internal trade, is also looking at ease of doing business, is also looking at certain other industrial sectors, is also looking. The Ministry of Commerce is also looking at procurement, the GEM part of it, and a lot of initiatives of different nature. Leather, footwear, ONDC are all under Ministry of Commerce. So one key initiative and key priority for DPIT is also Startup India. Now, to run Startup India, the team is housed under Invest India, which is the National Investment Promotion Agency of India. So, Invest India also works on a lot of other initiatives, Startup India Hub being one of them. So, the running, execution, conceptualization, hand holding, everything is done by the Startup India team housed under Invest India.
Thanks,
That's
thanks
how.
for that. Thanks for that, Asta. And we have a couple of minutes left before we end the session, and I have a bunch of questions. So I'll try and take up three questions. There's an interesting question by Harshit Banyal, um, and I echo with it. And I'll also like to understand more because 100x. The question is for a digital healthcare startup focusing on women, or if I rephrase it, women entrepreneurs who are starting out, what are the specific schemes being provided by Startup India? And the reason I ask this is because as a fund which has been operating for the last 3 years, Asta, we have backed at least 25% to 30% of our portfolio are women-led founders, and it is not because only because they're women. It is because women are building great businesses these days. But that being said, uh, so they still sometimes, particularly from tier two and tier three, to get the courage to start business, it's always beneficial to access certain skill very
Yeah.
early on. So the question, and it's a great question, Harshita, that what are these schemes specifically for women? And somebody even asked, working mothers or mothers, who
Yeah.
want to start their businesses.
Thank you, Harshita, for that question. And Shashank, kudos to you also for having a diverse portfolio of a fair representation from women founders. One, I would like to start with that all the schemes I are well applicable as much to a women as to a men. So we treat entrepreneurship as gender agnostic. But having said that, right, what we try and do, and what we do as a mandate, we don't just try, is that one third of beneficiaries for any scheme by DPIT, any program is kept for women. So if I'm taking 30 startups to slush, at least 10 will be women co-founders in that panel, right? And it is across any program, right? Within my team, I have it 70% who are women. And like you said, it's not just because I was, we wanted a diverse thing. It's just that they came across um, as impressive for the positions we were trying to fill, right? And that's how it happened. Harshita, for women's schemes particularly, there's a dedicated page on Startup India that highlights all women's schemes available across states and across ministries. Um, and along with the eligibility and how to apply for it. So I would urge you to have a look at that page and be and apply to the scheme that is applicable for you. As a government, what we also try and do is enable states, right, through the state ranking framework. We have asked them, we have actually mandated them to provide specific incentives to women entrepreneurs, and that's how more and more states are coming up with incentives specific to women. uh, out of the fund of funds that we have, 1,000 crore has been earmarked for investments in women funded and supported startups, and that also is happening through the VCs, and in fact we have already surpassed that number if I'm not wrong. So we are doing a bit in putting and wherever possible, taking an equal representation and coming up with this. But to know a whole gamut of these schemes, look at the page on women entrepreneurship. And very soon we will also be starting roadshows across India to getting the network to all the women entrepreneurs on ground and covering those districts where the access is limited, and not just those tier 2 tier 3 cities, but tier 1 as well, bringing about these opportunities and the network of mentors and investors with us.
I'll take up the second last question, and it's by Kushal Kumar. And I thought it's fair to bring this touch upon this topic. Is there's been a lot of news around cryptocurrency, blockchain, cryptocurrency, always sometimes brought in together. Where I personally
Yeah.
feel two separate topics. But uh, you know, what are your thoughts on what's happening and what is the landscape going forward for this asset? Cryptocurrency startups facing challenge. They are doing well, but they're not registering in India. They're possibly going somewhere else outside India. And what is your take on that? Is this a
Yeah.
challenge, or is this going to change? Is the government or Startup India trying to understand it deeply right now?
Right. So I will address this question, Shashank, in a way that not just crypto, but any sector or startup where you feel that representation with startup needs to be made with the concerned ministry, right? For example, I will reserve my views on the crypto or the Web3 or this part because I know there's a separate line ministry dedicatedly working on it. But what we do in general is that we take the industry representation, the startup representation on your behalf. We understand what are the challenges that you're facing, and we get the regulators and the nodal ministries on the other side to comment and understand the issues from both the side. And that's how we resolve the angel tax issue. That's how we have pushed for the electric vehicle bit, and the FAME policy. We worked with the pharmacy sector. We are now representing or talking about the issues in the gaming sector as well. But just to all the startups at large, right? If you need a representation to be made, if you have issues to be picked up with different ministries, do write into us. And we'd love to understand more from you and then provide you that platform to represent it with the right stakeholders in front of you.
Great, thanks for that. And I think the time is almost up, and I like to kind of end with a statement and obviously your views. Asta, you've been working in the ecosystem for many years. You've seen an evolution of the startups, and your mission and drive to kind of bring up Startup India. I have been working in the ecosystem where 100x has been supporting companies, but there are a new set of entrepreneurs, first time entrepreneurs in the age of 17, 18 to 23, who have not seen the evolution of the last 10, 15 years. And what we did not have in 2009, what we did not have in 2014, and what we did not have in 2016. So my question to you is, for those young entrepreneurs, first time entrepreneurs who've now stepped in, which is traditionally the second phase of startup evolution in India in the last 15 years, and if they have to be told why Startup India is important, what is the fundamental change, like the whole startup ecosystem in Israel has been doing with the help of government, and in the Silicon Valley, for them, because usually young entrepreneurs in India, there's a huge difference between government and private sector, right? And this is not what Startup India has been. They've been genuinely trying to club this thing. So your message to these young entrepreneurs who, for a lack of experience, might not truly appreciate what's happening on ground.
Okay, so I think one, right, take us, why Startup India Hub has been set up. And Startup India Hub is part of the action plan, right, which the Prime Minister announced. Is We are a not-for-profit entity, right, and we all come from private background, so we understand you. We understand. We want to understand you better and take those issues to the government. So take us as the bridge between the policymakers on one side and taking understanding your issues on the other. Second, take us as that single, as a hub and spoke model to help you access and navigate this market. You may be overwhelmed with the information around, you may be overwhelmed with the network around, but a single consolidated platform with all the information, be it the scheme policies, be it the state policies, be it the ministry policies, right, could be found on one platform. The network of investors, mentors, startups, incubators is on one platform. All the programs with respect to corporates, global, seed are also on this one platform. So just be a part of this network, in absorb as much as you can. And I think the biggest thing, Shashank, which is the ecosystem has already seen right today, my parents are not questioning me if I'm doing a startup, or leaving a high paying job to start on this stuff. And for me, that has been the biggest mindset change that we have brought in this ecosystem. Of course, there are miles to go, and there is a lot more to be done. But one step at a time. The mindset change has happened. The ecosystem is more supportive than ever, and with this support, not just the third largest ecosystem, we will soon become the leading ecosystem in the world.
Thank you for those spectacular insights, and I totally echo and agree with your thoughts. And Startup India has created a lot of difference, fundamentally, where a growing economy or a nation requires the government support, like we saw in Israel. And as you rightly said, miles to go, and the foundation has been laid. We are truly honored and delighted to partner with Startup India. Thank you once again, Astha, for taking your time and sharing great line of work which is being initiated by Startup India from every aspect, from seed stage funding to identifying product market fit and minimal viable product master classes to get insights, all the way to market access, and to providing seed capital through incubations or funds, a holistic platform which has been created under Startup India for all entrepreneurs which are now venturing into businesses either on B2B, B2C, or B2G, which is not actively looked upon by private investors. But even for those companies, Startup India is acting as a great stop point to understand how they can approach various bodies. So, with that, Asta, your final thoughts to the young entrepreneurs for 2022, and what they should be looking out for the next 6 months.
No, I would say just live your dream. This is the best time to be in this ecosystem. You have all of us around. Live your dream and make your own mistakes. And don't fail to restart if the first venture does not work out. That's all.
That's great. Great final thoughts, and thank you once again, Asta, and
Thank
thank you
you.
to the entrepreneurs for being here. And we'll connect soon through a next session. Take care. Bye
Thank you
bye.
so much, Shan, for having me. Thank you.